Hi, Sarah. Can you hear me? There's a mic icon at the bottom of your screen on the right-hand side that you would need to click in order to be audible. Can you hear me now? I don't know why I can't see. Now I can.
Can you hear me, Anton? Great. Hello.
Yes, I can. Hi, how are you?
Hello. Doing fine. How are you?
Well, I could be better off in Barbados or somewhere similar, but also suffering from an incurable disease that is known as man flu here in the UK. So,
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I wish I could help you with that problem.
No, don't worry about that. But thank you very much for joining us. I think James should be joining us soon for some reason. He's not been able to come into here. But shall we go on live?
I'm ready and happy to be here. Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, we're happy to have you here. So thank you very much for that.
And you can hear me fine, right? Am I too loud, too quiet?
No, this is brilliant. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. We are now live. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining us. This is Startup Fundraising Q&A. We do this every Thursday from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And I just need to tell James to click on the link above to join. So we do this every Thursday from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, where we seek to help startups like yourselves with whatever questions you may have on fundraising for your business to take it to the next stage. Those questions could be on anything from, let's say, investor outreach. When's the right time? Who should you go after? Is it a crowdfunding company? Is it a business? Is it a VC, an angel, a corporate VC? Or should you just go to a bank? How much you should ask for? How do you decide to do that? Maybe you want to know about your pitch deck or due diligence and all that jazz. There are no right or wrong questions, and there's no need to be shy. It's a learning curve for us all. All you have to do is raise your hand. We'll bring you up on stage, introduce yourself, and then fire away with your questions. There are no right or wrong questions. Again, it's a learning curve for us all. Now, if your questions, however, today are not on fundraising, please save them for the other events we do. On Mondays, we help startups with talent. On Tuesdays, we help startups with product and tech. On growth, it's fundraising. On Wednesdays, it's growth. And today, as you can see, on Thursdays, it's fundraising. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And you can RSVP to any of them if you go onto our site, StartUp-to-ScaleUp.club, and find the event that you like to RSVP to. Now, for those of you that are tuning in today via YouTube or Facebook, please be aware that unfortunately, we're unable to monitor your questions there. And I can see there's a few numbers. So if you want to ask any questions, please feel free to hop over to LinkedIn. You can do that by either going straight onto LinkedIn and searching for Startup to Scale Up Club. The last post there, it's today's event. Or you can go onto our site, startup-to-scaleup.club. Look out for Startup Fundraising Q&A 120, and that is today's session. We're going to go through some quick introductions, and then we'll open it for questions from the floor. By the way, we've had over 260,000 people join us so far. And since we've moved from Clubhouse to LinkedIn, we're not getting quite those numbers. So we need all the help we can get to spread the word, if you like, if you find any value in this. But all those numbers are down to one thing and one thing only. And that is down to people like Sarah and James, who give out their time for free to help you here. So please show them your love, follow them, and reach out if you need to. But otherwise, we'll go through some quick intros and then open it for questions. My name's Anton Call. I'm an Albanian in London, working with startups, helping them with talent. So I embed within their teams as a talent partner. I do some growth advisory work. And lately, I've been helping angels and family offices with their due diligence and also assessment. Sarah, the floor's yours.
Thanks, Anton. And I really appreciate, again, your invitation to join today. I love the idea. I didn't know about it before. Now that I do, I've been tuning in quite a bit. So happy to be here on this side. of the audio. And just a little bit about me. I've got almost 30 years, so let's call it 28 years in banking, specifically investment banking. I started out in capital markets. I also am a U.S. trained lawyer, American by birth, but I have been living in Munich, Germany for 18 years. And I have over time gone from banking to politics to corporate law and back around to investment banking. I like to say my last paying gig was I was CEO of the Raymond James German subsidiary, as well as COO for the European Investment Banking Division. And I stepped back about 3 years ago because we moved our headquarters from Munich to London and decided to stay put. Glad I did, because now I've moved into the late stage venture space. So I've launched my own firm, my own VC firm with 2 other women. So we're 3 female GPs. I sit in Munich. We have 1 GP sitting in Amsterdam and 1 sitting in New York. And we focus on Series B, B2B software and AI-enabled tech, specifically in the fintech space, the automation and supply chain space, and the climate space. So specifically for us, we find blue and circular economy super interesting, as well as ag tech. So we are ourselves fundraising our first fund as emerging managers. Each of us have done our own fair share of investing. And I personally am really excited to help startup, especially female founders and mixed teams, help them get to us. So what we see is not only fundraising being a problem, but actually access to those funders is very difficult once you get to around the Series A. And we start to see really good quality assets falling off. So something we are doing is investing before we invest. We want to help increase those networks, help you to understand better how to pitch to early stage VCs when your experience has been only with angels thus far, for example, and how to really set yourself up for success, and that you will come to us at the Series B so that we can happily invest in your growth startup at that point. One last thing, and I'll give it back over, Anton, to you, is that we really focus on helping our portfolio companies scale from the US to Europe or from Europe to the US. So that's one of our core offerings, I would say. Thanks.
Well, that is brilliant. And thank you very much for joining us, Sarah. I really appreciate this. And I think we could do with a lot more female managers, as well as female founders, but especially female managers, because I don't want to start this with a gloomy sort of vulgar figure, but in today's world, especially in the West, if you're a female founder, you're more likely to get run over by a bus than get investment. So hopefully we'll see much more of that. But thank you for joining us. And now, James, the floor's yours, buddy.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is 𝗦𝘁𝗿𝗶𝗀𝗶𝗀, and I'm developing a digital tech cluster for the Science and Technology Facilities Council, who are a government agency, part of UKRI, you might be more familiar with. And I've been helping tech startups for a number of years. I currently help more than 300 tech startups a year through my business support program. So I run about kind of 15, 16 workshops a year online on things like intellectual property through the sales and raising investment. Got a final workshop of the year next week around raising late seed or Series A. And yeah, really trying to help tech startups right across the UK through that business support program. But also I have a peer network where I kind of facilitate meetups for female tech leaders, for CEOs, CTOs, and they're online meetups available for all those sorts of people. And I also do some pitch practice on there and some mentoring as well. Now, the reason I do a lot of pitch practice and investment workshops and talking today is because I used to manage a couple of seed investment funds many years ago now, investing in over 100 businesses. And also was previously head of investment strategy and head of investment partnerships at Tech Nation and Tech North. I love helping tech startups realize their potential. And that's why I'm here today. And I'm really looking forward to all the questions coming in.
Well, that is brilliant. Thank you very much, James. Really appreciate that as well. Rightio, now a quick reset for those of you that have just tuned in. This is Startup Fundraising Q&A. And whilst I'm doing this reset, perhaps Sarah and James, you might want to think about some of your biggest do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage fundraising. And I'll ask that in a second. So this is our Startup Fundraising Q&A. It's our 120th session. We started these just over 3.5 years ago, and we're here to help founders with whatever questions you may have on raising money in order to take your business to the next stage. Now, as some of you may know, I'm not the biggest fan in the world of fundraising, but we don't all have big savings accounts or rich aunties and uncles and whatever to leave us money. So often we may need to do that. And if we do, then you could do much worse than spending the next 59 minutes with us. Sorry, actually 49 minutes now with us. The idea is quite simple. If you're a startup in the room and you've got any questions in terms of how to go about fundraising, whether you want to talk about your pitch deck or perhaps how to prep for due diligence, or maybe how much to ask for, how do you reach out to somebody? Is it an accelerator, an angel, a VC, or a corporate VC, or maybe crowdfunding that you need? Anything within that sphere, all you have to do is raise your hand. We'll bring you up on stage, introduce yourself, and then fire away with your question. There are no right or wrong questions, and there's no need to be shy. It's a learning curve for us all. The only thing I'd ask is try to keep the introduction and the question to about a minute. And also, us as panelists will try and do that as well in terms of the answers, so we can get more questions through. On the other hand, if you're tuning in via YouTube and Facebook, please be aware that unfortunately we're unable to monitor your questions there. So you'll need to join us here live on LinkedIn Live Audio. You can either go to LinkedIn and search for Startup to Scale Up Club, and our last post there is today's event, or you can go to our site, startuptoscaleup.club, look for Startup Fundraising Q&A 120, and you can join us via there. Now, if your questions today, though, are not on fundraising, please save them for the other events we do. Monday's Talent, Tuesday's Product and Tech, Wednesday's Growth, and Thursday's Fundraising. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can RSVP to any of them via our website. Now, I see a couple of people here that have reached out to me about asking questions. I would kindly ask you not to leave it for too late, because often we get that and then we run out of time. So if you do want to ask us questions, raise your hand now and I'll bring you up. In the meantime, we'll go on to James and then Sarah with your biggest do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage fundraising. James?
Thanks, Anton. Off the top of my head, I've got a few. So a few do's to start off with. Definitely do some due diligence on the investors that you're reaching out to. So make sure you know that they are definitely the kind of investor that could invest in you. Do they do your market? Do they invest in? Do they write the kind of checks that you're looking for? And also just do a bit of a background check to see if they are how they behave as investors as well. Talk to their portfolio and so on. I would say that's a definite do. Another quick couple of definite do's is fix any issues before you look to fundraise. Sometimes you might be talking to people about your go-to-market strategy, and people are going, really, that doesn't sound great. And you go, yeah, we're not 100% sure about that, but we need to raise investment. That's the most important thing to do. If you're going out with there's some fundamental issue with it within the business, it's going to keep coming up again and again and put investors off. So try and go through all those different things that you need in order to raise investment and make sure you've got them in place. Same goes for making sure your own due diligence is in place and kind of ready to answer questions on as well. And practice your pitch with reliable people that will give you feedback as well, rather than just kind of family and friends. A couple of don'ts from me. Don't leave it too late. It never sounds good if you're going to investors and go, yeah, we're looking to raise investment and we need to get it all done in the next 6 weeks, otherwise we run out of money. A, a lot of investors can't move that quickly, and B, it doesn't make it sound like you know how to run a business. So make sure you allow yourself plenty of time. And the final one, particularly when you're pitching, try to focus, or try not to focus on how your tech works, and why it's clever. Focus more on what it does. So think of the kind of customer benefit, because the investor will relate to that customer benefit much more than the kind of technicalities behind it. You'll get into the technicalities further down the line, but when you're doing that first pitch, focus on the benefit. Those are mine, Anton.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, James. Sarah?
Sorry about that. Wasn't on the trigger for the mute button. Great. So I'm the joy of going second. I'm going to piggyback a little bit on what James said, because I fully agree, and then add a couple of my own. As I was thinking, what are my sort of top do's? Number one ties a little bit into James's point about doing your due diligence on the investors that you're going to speak with. So my number one is to have several pitch decks prepared. This doesn't have to mean that you have to have a completely, 10 slides and then completely different slides. But what I mean by that is, as you're doing your homework, as James suggested, on the angel investors you're going to talk to, the early stage VC investors you're going to speak with, maybe even friends and family or extended friends and family. As you're doing that homework, they each, the storyline, so what your tech does is going to resonate differently with different audiences. Normally, you can narrow that down to a couple of different, so 2 or 3 different scenarios, but do not, I would say, do not pitch the wrong angle to the wrong investor. It can make a big difference, and they'll decide in the first 5 minutes. This ties a little bit into what James was saying again at the end. Talk about what the tech does. I would take that further. Storytelling sells, right? And storytelling will get you more money at the end of the day. So what do I mean by that? If you can connect what the tech does to an emotion of the person, of your audience, of the person you're talking to, it's not only going to resonate, as James pointed out, but it's also going to help them to understand the urgency of the need, because they need it too. Or, it's going to evoke some kind of emotion, which makes them make a decision in your favor. So that would be sort of a combined sort of first look at it. A very short and easy trick that I like to suggest to people is, no matter what the meeting is, always ask for an introduction. Always ask for one introduction before the meeting's over. So in case this person is really interested, ask them if they know anyone else who might be interested. If they're not interested, do they know someone who might be? So don't leave a meeting without asking for one introduction to someone else. It's really a way to build your network, even if it's just that, building a network, because each introduction leads to someone else. Last piece, and I think James also talked about this briefly. I would say, understand, as you're doing your financial plan, understand very clearly what you need the money for. So if you're raising $1 million, do you need the full $1 million? Can you live with less? Does it make sense for you to go for more? And it can go in both directions. You're going to have these questions. They're going to ask you directly, what do you need the money for? And I agree with what James said. If it's too late and you say, we're running out of money, so that's what we need the money for, investors, as James said, don't move that quickly. But B, it shows a lack of planning on your part and a lack of strategic planning on your part. So don't wait too long, but also make sure you've got a plan into the future. Investors are not turned off by you saying, actually, we need 2 million and not 1 million. We need 1 million for this year, but we don't want to have to take time away from our day-to-day to go out and fundraise. So we're raising 2 million. This is more sort of, they will respect this answer more than saying, oh yeah, we've got a bunch of old stuff we got to pay off and we got to pay ourselves, and that's what we need the money for. So I hope that's, happy to answer questions in that direction, but those would be my top do's and don'ts.
Well, thank you very much to both of you, and I'm glad you touched on some of those points, and I'd like to emphasize again on those 2 points. Number one, in terms of starting early, the case used to be that most decent startups, it took them, at least in the Western world, it took them about 6 months to fundraise. Now I'm seeing much more around the 1 year time period. And 2, it used to be that startups needed to foresee about 1 year to 18 months runway in terms of fundraising. So fundraise enough to keep things going for a year and a half. Now it's a case of at least 2 years plus. So bear that in mind, basically. And last but not least, and again, just tying it in with what James and Sarah said, one of the first things I've learned in the investment world is that if you ask a VC or an investor for that matter for money, you may get advice, and if you ask for advice, you may even get money at some point. Start early. You don't need to start asking them for money from day one, but start that conversation. Follow them on LinkedIn, Twitter, Medium, wherever they are, and start engaging earlier. And at some point, why not just even reach out just to pick their brains? And obviously you'll end up talking to hundreds and maybe only 1 or 2 will talk to you, but that's the name of the game. And I'm grateful to both of you for your do's and don'ts here. Now, quick reset for those of you that have just tuned in. I see a few numbers on YouTube and especially Facebook. Please be aware that unfortunately we're unable to monitor your questions there. So if you've got any live questions, you'll need to join us here on LinkedIn. You can do that by either coming onto LinkedIn and searching for StartUp to Scale Up Club, and it's the last post there, it's today's event. Or if you are on Facebook or YouTube, again, you can go onto our website, StartUp2ScaleUp.club, and look out for today's Startup Fundraising Q&A 120 to join us live and ask questions here. On the other hand, we're helping founders here with any questions you may have on fundraising. Perhaps when's the right time to fundraise? You might want to learn a bit more about valuations or even exits for that matter, or perhaps just the initial stages, investor outreach, how much you ask for, should you go to an angel, a VC, an accelerator, how do you get your data room done? All that stuff. All you have to do is raise your hand, we'll bring you up on stage, introduce yourself, and then fire away with your questions. There are no right or wrong questions. And James and Sarah, I'll put a question in our chat in the messages that was sent in to us if you want to have a look at that once we're waiting for some people here. All those questions are a go, basically. So all you have to do is raise your hand, we'll bring you up on stage, you introduce yourself, and then fire away with your question. If, however, your questions today are not on fundraising, please save them for the other events we do. Monday's Talent, Tuesday's Product and Tech, Wednesday's Growth, and Thursday's Fundraising. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you may want to RSVP to any events that we do between now and the 19th of December, and you can find them on our website, StartUp2ScaleUp.club, where you can then RSVP to those. Now, whilst we're waiting for some of you shy people here in the audience to raise your hand so we can bring you up, we'll go to some questions. So this one is from somebody in Glasgow. They're an augmented reality software for interior design, pre-seed. And that question goes as follows. We're an early stage AR application that enables real-time virtual staging of rooms for the interior design industry. Limited network access has hindered our ability to secure initial meetings with angels or VCs. Now, our goal is to secure connections to investors with expertise in property tech, ideally, or consumer AR applications. But again, property tech might be best. We're an AR startup developing software for virtual room staging, but our team's limited network has been a roadblock to securing investor meetings. We are fresh out of university and would like to know what strategies or platforms should we use to identify and approach relevant investors in the PropTech and consumer AR sectors, given our lack of direct connections. That's question one. Then they go on to say, we're particularly interested in finding warm introductions from industry insiders or connectors, but lack insight into how to network effectively without prior ties. Also, should we prioritize attending specific UK PropTech or AR focused events, accelerators, angel networks, or maybe just try and build credibility and increase our chances of quality interest? We're hoping to secure pre-seed investment to fund our early pilots and need to ensure that introductions translate into valuable conversations with investors who can also offer strategic guidance. Geez, that's a question and a half. Sarah, did you get a chance to read it? I hope you can see it in the messages. Would you like to go first this time?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I would propose that we look at this question not specific to the sectors, because I would have the same answer no matter the sector. And I think that might be helpful to our listeners. So the question really is, what strategies or platforms should you use to identify and approach relevant investors? Regardless of the sector, I would have the same answer. It's never been easier to research in any of our lifetimes, right? So Google is your friend. I would say the first step that any of you should take, if you are still wondering sort of how to do this and how to find relevant investors, the first thing I would do is to actually, ask ChatGPT, Google it, just say, what events are local to me, what events are in the UK, what events are in Europe, or whatever country you're sitting in, related to my industry sector. So in this case, VR and AR, consumer AR and PropTech. It's relatively easy to do. Events will pop up. Especially for those of you who are really bootstrapping at this point, which I assume is the majority, you're going to want to look for pitch events where you can actually go for free. You can get chosen to pitch your very early stage. In some cases, there's pitch ideas that you can do. Accelerators you can join, as well as incubators where they actually introduce you to early stage VCs. So I think there's a lot of research you can do on your own, even if you don't have those warm networks. And as I mentioned earlier, I think this ties directly into each time you speak to someone, whether it's a formal meeting or you meet someone at a conference, always ask for an introduction. People want to help. They wouldn't be sort of chatting with you if they weren't interested in what you're doing. And the ecosystem is, I think, very, very open and helpful, but you have to ask. So a little bit like here, asking questions, you do have to take a step forward. Ask them for an introduction, and this will grow your network in a very short period of time. LinkedIn, as we're using ourselves, LinkedIn is an enormous platform that is set up in many ways for, in my opinion, for networking and for fundraising at the end of the day. So networking and fundraising go hand in hand. Something I wanted to mention earlier that I would say today as well, if you don't or can't afford an actual CRM yet in your business, use an Excel spreadsheet, but keep up from the very beginning. Keep up with the people you meet, keep up with the people you're talking to, the introductions you're getting. Do that work, because it can make or break. Again, first impressions are really important. I had two founders that pitched me this week, and we got on the phone. It was a video call. we got on the phone, and they did not remember that we had met. I did. And I can tell you, I was not impressed by the fact that they went straight into their pitch. So they made sort of two mistakes, I think, at the very beginning of this pitch. Number one, they didn't remember me. I had to say, oh yeah, don't you remember? We had sort of a 10-minute conversation at such and such conference. Oh yeah, that's right. And the second thing that bothered me as an investor is that they pitched me, again, talking earlier about having several sort of pitch ways to pitch your product. They pitched me on the area of the product that is not my focus. So I basically did their job for them to say, look, I'm really interested. That's why I took this meeting, but I'm interested because of the other angle, which was more closer for me to a fintech, right? And they were pitching me as a healthcare product. So that's one example where, unfortunately, they made two mistakes in one, but learn from that. So as you're doing your research, and you're just using Google, or whichever search engine, I don't work for Google, but do your research, not only to find out where the events are, what's specific to your sector, but then go deep on the people that you meet. You meet someone, you can automatically ask them for a meeting or ask them for another introduction. Look them up on LinkedIn, connect to them as soon as you can. Keep that iron hot, so that if there is momentum and interest, you don't lose them by waiting a couple of months later and nobody remembers what you talked about in the first place. That would be kind of my answer, my broader answer to this question.
Much appreciated, Sarah. James, any thoughts on this?
Yes, I agree with everything Sarah was saying, particularly around the CRM, because you're going to be speaking to so many people as you start networking that it's really a good idea to keep a note of who you've met and what you've said to each one and who they might have introduced you to and so on. Because you'll be referring back to that CRM in the future as you kind of finalize who you want to speak to when you're looking to raise investment. But as a general rule, I think people can get a little bit nervous about trying to find the perfect networking event where they're definitely going to meet the right kind of people and so on. There isn't anything out there like that. You've really just got to go out and learn yourself which networking events are going to work for you. Just get out there to as many as possible in the kind of broader tech startup space, the investment space and so on. And I would definitely look at really hyper relevant ones around prop tech and take the time, even if they're in another city, to go along to a prop tech event, prop tech investment event, and so on. Because you're going to meet the kind of investors that want to invest in prop tech, and you're going to meet other kind of founders that are going through the same thing as you. And it's really good to meet them and learn from them. There's a whole bunch of places online that you can find kind of lists of people, of investors that would invest in your kind of startup. Look at 𝗏𝗏. They often will bring out kind of most active VCs, most active angel group kind of lists each year. Seed Legals often do lists, and look at Startup Funding Mag. Landscape VC, Sifted are both kind of useful for that as well. There's a UK Business Angel Association. You can access information on their website too. Like Sarah said, LinkedIn is fantastic. Take some of what people say with a pinch of salt. Some people describe themselves as angel investors, and arguably they are kind of pretend angels, where they're happy to invest some money into you, but actually they also want to charge you some separate consultancy services. So be careful about who's out there. In terms of warm introductions, I think you mentioned that you just finished university. Go back to the university and talk to people that are speaking to investors, trying to create spin-outs and so on. They're going to have some a bit of a network in the investment space, so have a chat to them and get some introductions through them. If you do find a seed investment fund perhaps that's out there that you're thinking of approaching, talk to their portfolio first to find out whether they are good investors or not. But also, once you talk to their portfolio companies and build up a bit of a rapport with them, it might be that that company is happy to do a warm introduction for you. And the introductions from portfolio companies are kind of considered quite high quality introductions by investors. Also, you're going to need a lawyer, an accountant at some point as well. Talk to them early on and see if they've got any ideas about who you might want to talk to for investment. You're in Glasgow. Edinburgh's got a particularly good investment scene, particularly good kind of investment ecosystem, as they say. So pop along. I know it's not too close, but don't just be kind of restricted by what's happening in Glasgow, in your immediate city. And you talk about pilots as well, and getting kind of pilots off the ground and needing to raise investment for that. We'll also talk to the customers that will be doing the pilot too, and see if they might be able to use any kind of funds that they have to pay for some of the pilot up front. So it's easier when you go to talk to an investor and say, look, not only do I have a customer lined up to do a pilot, but they're actually going to come front load their invoices to help with the cash flow. So that's why I need X amount of money just to get this kind of pilot off the ground. That speaks really well to an investor, that they kind of see the opportunity there, and they see that you've spoken to a customer, and you aren't at the stage where you're still working out who your customer is. You've kind of got one lined up. So that would be my kind of quick overall advice there.
This is absolute gold from both of you. I wish the react button had a fire icon that I could press for both Sarah's and James's points. I really appreciate this. I'll give you my quick 2 pence, try not to repeat what Sarah and James said, but I would definitely back the university part. I would also look at Innovate UK. And also at Innovate UK, there's a lady, Asha Easton, if I'm not mistaken. She is in the immersive space. You want to check her out. You also want to look at places like Pi Labs. They do prop tech. They're an investor, and through them you may find events and so on. But personally, actually, I think you're not ready for VC. Personally, I think you should stick at the moment to accelerator/incubators and also angels. The way to do that, a couple of accelerators that come to mind is Techstars and Antler, that do a lot of stuff sort of in your field. And also in terms of angels, now 𝗏𝗏 it's a brilliant avenue, but unfortunately costs an arm and a leg. Now, City of London has a scheme where you can go and use it in their offices for free. Maybe you might want to check if there's something similar at your university, or Glasgow City Town Hall, whatever it may be, somewhere there. And also you can check things like Crowdcube, which is free, or Angel List. And a type of angel that would be really good to open doors for you is people who've been in this space, they've exited a company in that space, let's say in the last 3 years, and that means they've got some money, or ideally they would have some money to play around with. 2, they know all the ins and outs, they can foresee barriers you're going to encounter, and also they can advise you on this. So maybe that's the kind of list you would make. I would literally sit down and make a list of 100 angels that are most related to what you're doing, and just try and reach out to them via LinkedIn, as Sarah said, and also James mentioned that. So that's what I would do for now. I hope that helps, and if you've got any follow-ups, please do join us live next time. I keep repeating this. I'm not a huge fan of you sending questions, simply because we don't have you here to follow up and give you the best advice we can. So please do feel free to join us live. Now, a quick reset of this conversation before we go on to Maria. This is, and if anybody else wants to come up, all you have to do is just raise your hand. So this is Startup Fundraising Q&A. We do this every Thursday from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, where we seek to help startups with whatever questions you may have on fundraising in order to take your business to the next stage. The idea, it's quite simple. You may be here, you've got questions on pitch decks, due diligence, data rooms, investor outreach, crowdfunding, grants, VC, corporate VC. Perhaps you want to know how to pitch or how much to ask for. and all that jazz. All you have to do is raise your hand, we'll bring you up on stage, introduce yourself, and then fire away with your question. There are no right or wrong questions, and there's no need to be shy. If you're tuning in via Facebook or YouTube, please be aware that unfortunately we're unable to monitor your questions there, so you would need to join us. Either hop onto LinkedIn and search the Startup to Scale Up Club. The last post there, it's today's event, or you can go to our site, StartUp2ScaleUp.club, and look out for today's fundraising Q&A, Startup Fundraising Q&A 120. Now, speaking of the website, we publish there all our future and past rooms for that matter. So if your questions today are not on fundraising, please save them for the other events we run. Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, and obviously today, Thursday's fundraising. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can RSVP to any of them via StartUp2ScaleUp.club. And without further ado, welcome to our stage, Maria. Please introduce yourself and fire away with whatever question you have for us.
Hi, thank you, Anton. I am Maria, the founder of 𝗦𝘁, and we build a subscription solution to help brick and mortar business owners drive recurring revenue. We're looking to raise 600,000, divided 350 in dilutive and the rest in French grants, because we are based in France. I'm gonna take advantage of this group because, like,
please do.
I'm here. So I've heard what Sarah said, and James, amazing. All of the ChatGPT, Sarah, is a really good idea. Asking, hey, you know, what angel founders are in my space. Always ask for the intro is fantastic. I'm asking, do you know anyone, any angels that invest in early stage in my sector? Know that we already have paying clients and 1,500 in MRRs. So our product is already commercialized. We have paying clients. It's small, but we're getting there. So I'm just, I'm gonna just pop the question. Do you know anyone I could go ahead and ask? Sarah, I am asking for the intro. And just a quick tip, because Sarah said about building a CRM and using Excel. Can I give a free? I found a really good CRM for precisely this this reason. Can I give it out?
Is it free?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, tell you what, you can give it out, and also in the comments. So if you look at the top of your screen, there's three dots on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
There's a comment section there, and you can actually place the details, the website or whatever you want to put there of that CRM. So yeah, go ahead.
I'll do that. Well, I found a great CRM for investors when you're raising. It's on OpenVC, and you can just use it so that doesn't happen to you, where you talk to an investor and then forget. How could they forget you, Sarah? And also really quickly, because I have already been raising and we already have a percentage of our raise secured. James talked about scam angels. I would love to hear about your green flags for angels, because one of my green flags is if they're taking months and just drawing it out. You're early stage. When you're such early stage, there isn't that much due diligence to do. And all of the investors that have invested, they're investing in me, they're investing in the product, and they're investing in the team. So the investors that have invested, they invest fairly quickly. And that is now, for me, a huge green flag. Any investor who just draws it out and keeps asking for more details and more rendezvous and more, they're not going to invest. And that happened to me, and I lost a lot of time with one. So yeah, be careful for scam angels. So yeah, back to my question. Do you know any early stage investors that invest in my sector? Do you have anyone to recommend?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, Maria. We try and stay away from those suggestions, although Sarah and James are more than welcome to do that if they want to. But one thing I'm willing to do, if you like, if you send me literally 3 or 4 lines, I'm happy to share that in my LinkedIn with our audience to see if anybody's interested. That's number one. Number two, I would sit down and make a list of angels that are in your space and literally just reach out to them. Accelerators are really good at that. And in terms of what you're doing, it may be worth to basically speak to the investors that have already committed to find other investors. That normally tends to be quite good. Now, last but not least, you mentioned green flags and also James's point about red flags. I do quite a bit of work lately with angels, especially, and some family offices. And unfortunately, the majority of them have got no clue how to do due diligence, how to assess, and all that jazz. And unfortunately, they end up taking a long time. So that's not always a bad thing. But my rule of thumb at the moment, it's about 6 weeks. If an angel doesn't really get from sort of when you've pitched to them to when they say yay or nay and sign some kind of agreement with you, if that is not done within about 6 weeks, then either they are playing the waiting game, or they don't really have the money, or maybe there's some kind of advisor trying to wait for money from other people, and so on. That's what I try and see and advise some of the startups I know to try and play around with. But if James and then Sarah want to add anything here, more than happy to. James?
Hi, yeah, thanks, Anton, and yeah, happy to share your post that you'll do after this. It is difficult trying to recommend investors and angels when you don't quite know the business that well. I would say if you've raised investment in France and now you're looking to raise investment in the UK, consider some of the logistics around things like board meetings. Because I know particularly angel investors would much prefer to go to local board meetings where they're able to kind of go in person. So think about how you might want to arrange that, and also work out are your existing board happy to switch to online board meetings if they're going to be in France and some of your investors are going to be in England, and yeah, just kind of have a kind of ready answer for that. I think also having some sort of base in the UK, if you don't already, perhaps you already have, but that would also help reassure angels that you're going to have some kind of UK base, and then just go along to networking events. London is particularly kind of well networked, lots and lots of events going on. So if London is kind of easy for you to access, then I would definitely recommend doing that. And I was going to make some other point. I've forgotten it now, but yeah, it sounds like you've got quite an interesting business that I think plenty of investors will be interested in. It's it sounds like some kind of plug-in for traditional businesses to have on their website so they can sell subscriptions rather than selling kind of per item. I think that's a good idea, and if you make it really easy for people there, I think they'd be happy to sign up to that. So I can see it being scalable, and I can see it being attractive to lots of businesses that can understand that how this would work. It's nothing too kind of complex or niche that they say, oh, this was not for me. So I think it would have quite wide appeal. So get networking in London and work out how those board meetings might work in the future, so that you have a kind of ready answer for angels or any kind of fund managers that might ask that in your first meeting. That would be my advice.
Brilliant, thank you, James. Sarah?
Yeah, hi Maria. We know each other, so the little secret that everybody else doesn't know. Hi Maria. And I would say I agree with James. I think in this context, this is difficult to name a person, and I would hesitate to do that anyway on a live, something that's going to be recorded. But my suggestion to you, slightly different than James, mainly because I know you're located in France. I would start locally with angel networks. So I certainly can recommend some angel networks that are UK, German, and sort of Europe-wide. I'm less familiar with local French angel networks, although I can, Maria, after this call, give you the name of someone who I know is familiar with the angel networks. You can also Google this. So this is not sort of private information. There are quite a few robust syndicate networks out there where they will welcome you to a online pitch event where all of their angels, they do this every 2 weeks, once a month, once a quarter. They're doing regular pitch events where they invite pre-seed and seed companies to pitch to their entire network. And it's of course optional, but people call in because this is their deal flow, right? And a lot of that diligence, as Anton mentioned, a lot of angels don't have the time or the wherewithal really to do large amounts of due diligence. And so the syndicates do that for them. It's one really big benefit to being part of an angel network. I'm part of two myself, who are very female focused, but that works for you, Maria. So I can say the two networks I'm in. One is Encourage Ventures. That's a syndicate for female angels. We don't only invest in female founders, but of course we have an eye for gender and mixed teams. And the other one is called the Female Investor Network, which is actually it's supported sort of the underlying venture is called Gateway Ventures, and that's out of Austria. Encourage Ventures is German. All My Angels is a big one, and I know them personally. They'd be happy for me to push them out to the masses. You can Google them and get in touch with them quite easily. So I think that's the best sort of impact you can have, is to reach out to them and say, I've got an interesting business. I'd love to pitch it to your membership. And that will get you one step closer to some angels who may be very interested in your business.
That is brilliant. Thank you, Sarah. And speaking of Alma Angels, I have left a comment on this event, Maria, and tagged a person at Alma to see if he might want to have a chat with you.
Thanks so much. I was referring to not a specific person, but more of like exactly what Sarah said. All of these, I wrote them all down. Thank you so much, and thank you, James. Thank you, Anton. I'm taking advantage of people being a little bit shy here, so I'm raising my hand and asking.
No, that is totally fine. Another thing to look at, perhaps, Maria, is the EU. The EIC do quite a bit of work, whilst I personally think it's quite a lengthy process to apply for their schemes, whether it's grants or investment. They also run quite a few events that are worthy of attending, and they do have quite some knowledge in terms of the ecosystem, whereby they may recommend you to the various angel investment networks or syndicates out there that is worth for you to look at. So I would strongly encourage you to look at that. And then also, I believe, is it La French Tech? I think it's La French Tech. That they do quite a bit of work on this space, so maybe worth to look at that. But yeah, just go after these syndicates. They're normally a good start.
Thank you, everyone.
You're very welcome, and thank you very much. Now, quick reset of the room. This is Startup to Scale Up Club's Startup Fundraising Q&A. It's our 120th session. We're helping founders with whatever questions you may have on your fundraising journey. There are no right or wrong questions, and there's no need to be shy. We are now 7 minutes away from shutting shop for today. So if you do have any questions, I think this is the time to, because we may not have time for more than one question. If you're tuning in via Facebook or YouTube, please be aware that unfortunately we're unable to monitor your questions there. If you've got questions that are not on on fundraising, then save them for the other rooms, for the other events that we run. On Mondays, it's talent. On Tuesdays, it's product and tech. On Wednesdays, it's growth. And Thursdays, fundraising. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And you may want to RSVP to any of our future sessions via StartUp to ScaleUp.club and just go on there. 𝗦𝘁𝗿 𝗏, welcome back to our stage. please briefly introduce yourself and then fire away with your question. Let's try and keep this to about a minute so that we can answer your question and then Dawood's after, and then we've got a question that they keep sending it to us because we haven't had a chance to answer it for them yet. Go ahead.
Sure. So hi, this is 𝗦𝘁𝗿 𝗙𝗂. I am Associate Director working for Cognizant Technology Solutions, and now I am building a startup which is actually addressing mental health concerns, early signs of mental health concerns using AI. And I'm doing the bootstrapping, as you know, like others, right? And my question is, the people who are doing bootstrapping, right? They are definitely not, full time, but definitely we do have a lot of passion for our startup. Now, this can be a red flag for the investors, right? So, what is the strategy that we should take, to make or break the ice?
That's a very good question. Thank you very much, 𝗦𝘁𝗿. As somebody who's been on that seat, and probably to a certain extent I am now, but I'm not planning to raise, that is quite a tough one. Yes, some investors see that as a red flag, but in my experience, a good way to break that is to say, look, I've got to put food on the table, and that's why I'm doing something on the side to keep my lights on. But my plan is, as soon as I have what I need to go forward, I obviously want to go here 101% and give my all. And yes, there'll still be people that see that as a red flag, but then, hey, they're not the right people for you. But I'd love to hear what Sarah and then James got to say on this.
Thanks. I'll try to make it quick. My first thought is actually psychological. In this case, I will go back to something I said earlier, which is storytelling sells. If you can actually pinpoint the reason your tech resonates with them, is interesting for them, and is worth their time, and at the end of the day, their money, they're not gonna see that far past your passion and understand. We all understand you have to put food on the table. So I agree with Anton. I think that your goal should not be to come up with some kind of excuse as to why you're not full time. Rather, you're giving it your full passion, right? And if you can put that together in your pitch, and you have a passionate pitch that resonates with the right investor, they are going to understand that as soon as you have money, you're going to do this full time. And they may ask that question, and you should have a plan in place to say, look, once I get this fundraising round is done, I will shift my full efforts to this project. And that should be the answer. But I think the key is to not focus on the negative and really focus on resonating with that investor.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Sarah. James, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'd agree with Sarah. And as a former investor, this never put me off, the fact that people were bootstrapping and having to do other things. I think the only time it becomes an issue is if you're saying, look, I've got this other job, and this is, in my spare time, I do this startup, which I want you to fund. But actually, for the next year or so, I still need to do my other job, and I'm going to use your money to do X, Y, and Z. It just feels like you're not fully committed. So I would look to make sure you're raising enough money that you can fully commit to it, and B, make sure that you communicate that plan upfront to the investor to say, and like Sarah says, be really positive about it and say, I'm really passionate about this. This is my passion, and I'm going to be 100% on it. As soon as I raise this money, I go into it full time and do X, Y, and Z and deliver what I said I'm going to deliver. I think also what you need to try and impress the investors with is what you've been able to do with zero money. So actually, it sounds really impressive when you're able to say, look what I've been able to build with no money. Look who I've managed to talk to. Look what doors I've managed to open. Look what customers I've got lined up with no money. If you put money into this, this will only accelerate. So, see it as a real positive that you've been able to achieve so much with nothing, and kind of reassure them that actually their funding will just be fueling that fire to drive this forward.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, James. So 𝗦𝘁𝗿, focus on storytelling and the traction. Now let's go quickly to Dawood before we wrap up. Dawood?
Yes, thank you. I try to be quick. So just a background, I'm fundraising. I come from Poland, and that was a good advice from Sarah to start fundraising locally, because it goes pretty easy for me. The problem is the investors from Poland are partnered with public money, and they want me to incorporate and launch the product in Poland, which is the last thing I would do, because Polish market is immature. So how do I fundraise outside of CEE, being here?
Thank you very much, David. I'll give you my quick 2 pence and then pass you on to Sarah and then James. Personally, I think in my experience anyway, investors are keener on investing on people that know the market they're entering. So you may be in Poland, but if you can show that you actually know, I don't know, just for argument's sake, you know the American market inside out and you've got the connections, then it's not a problem. But if you can't do that, then it's probably a better idea to prove your concept in Poland and start up a company there, and then you can always start an entity somewhere else and then raise money for the next stage. But let's hear what Sarah and then James got to say.
I don't disagree with what you've just said, Anton. And I need to know a little bit more, David. I see that you have signed up for a meeting with me, so maybe we'll talk about this. But I need to know a little bit more about your feelings about the market, so inside CE versus outside. I do agree with what Anton said, and I take it one step further. You have different types of investors, both at the business angels and early stage VC. Usually serious investors, we talked about red flags, serious investors are looking for returns. Some angels really like to get involved. It's something they do on the side. They like to get involved with the company and really be high touch. Others are just looking for diversification, and they want to invest and they want to see returns. So it may not be a question of, oh, we want you to be on the ground in Poland, but maybe they don't see where the returns are going to come from, or they don't trust that you can go outside of CE first. So that goes back to something Anton said, which is, how has your market research been done? And is there more market research you can do to support your thesis that this must be started outside of CE? And you're living in CE, so do you need to relocate to grow your business? That might also be an answer to this
Brilliant.
question.
Thank you very much, Sarah. James, any thoughts on?
Yeah, thanks. Building on what Sarah's saying, I think if the funding inside Poland is linked to the public sector, I would talk to them about why do they want you to focus on the Polish market, and it could be that they're focused on innovations happening within the Polish market and digital adoption of digital solutions and things like that. But they might also be focused on outcomes like jobs created and things like that. So if you are able to put a compelling case together to say, actually, Poland is going to be the last market we enter because it's underdeveloped and too small to scale in, and you can say, but actually, we're going to start in Germany or the UK, whichever market it is, and you can kind of put some figures behind that and say that this market is so much more developed, we'll be able to scale much quicker, and when we scale, we'll be employing a Polish dev team, Polish kind of salespeople, and building the company in Poland. The public sector might be really happy with that because they're seeing the kind of GVA and the jobs created alongside that, and they might be willing to back you, even if you're not going to go to the Polish market first. Having said that, I think having the Polish, going to your local market first is a great first step, even if you are going to go to the UK second, for example, because people in the UK are going to say, investors in the UK and customers in the UK are going to see you coming from Poland and going to be, okay, well, what traction have you got? And you said, actually, we went in our own back door, even though the market's really small, and we demonstrated that we're able to make sales to people that we know, that can kind of build a relationship with them. And now we've kind of got those case studies and we're able to kind of take them elsewhere. So it could be that you focus on the Polish market for just a few months before you go wider. But just by doing that, at least you're building up some case studies, and people overseas will trust you more, knowing that people that know you have bought from you and invested in you.
Yeah, brilliant. That is brilliant stuff. And if I may quickly just add one thing, David, in my experience with the investment ecosystem, investors are less likely to invest in a jurisdiction that they don't know about. I hope you found that helpful, David, and also 𝗦𝘁𝗿 𝗙𝘂. I guess we are now way over the line. I'm really sorry, Sarah and James, we're 5 minutes over the line. I can let you go, or you can give us some quick parting words if you like. It's entirely up to you.
I'll just say thank you very much for having me. If anyone is interested in accessing my online workshops, follow me on LinkedIn. I tend to promote them all there. I've got one next week about raising late seed and Series A, and you're welcome to come along. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, James. Yes, Sarah.
Amazing. Yeah, I just would say the same thing. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was great to hear from a couple of you, and feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. And hopefully see you out there fundraising.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you very much, James. Huge thanks to everyone that joined us today, especially those of you that came up for questions. This has been Startup Fundraising Q&A. We do this every Thursday from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, where we try to help you with whatever questions you may have on fundraising in order to take your business to the next stage. We also run a few other events, so in total it's 4: Monday's Talent, Tuesday's Product and Tech, Wednesday's Growth, and Thursday's Fundraising. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you may RSVP to any of them via our site, StartUp.𝗦𝘂 If you found value in this, please do share these events. The more the merrier. And as far as my parting words are concerned, just remember the startup journey can be both challenging but also quite exciting. So try to have some fun in the meantime, and be kind to yourself and everyone else for that matter too. Otherwise, have a great weekend ahead. See you on Monday for Startup Talent, and God bless you all. Bye bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome advices. Thank you.